We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, June 11th here in Seoul. I'm Songjin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Cheska Dainha.
Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Happy Tuesday! And Im Sang-yeon.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online over the past 24 hours. We begin in Iran, where the country's Guardian Council overseeing elections and legislation has approved 6 candidates for its presidential election scheduled for June 28th. Among them, Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, a hardline parliament speaker and former Revolutionary Guards commander, is considered the most prominent candidate. Sunday's decision marked the start of the 2-week presidential campaign, which will decide who will replace President Ibrahim Raisi, who died in a helicopter crash last month. Now, moving on, back here in Korea, the standoff between the government and the medical community over the expansion of medical school admissions quota is intensifying. Private practitioners are expected to join the mass walkout organized by the country's largest doctors group, the Korea Medical Association, on June 18th. In previous walkouts, the participation rate of private practice doctors was low, but a recent KMA survey indicates that it may be different this time. In response, the health ministry has reportedly decided to issue return to work orders to these doctors if more than 30% of them participate in the walkout. Non-compliance with this order could result in fines, temporary business shutdowns, or even license suspensions. Private practitioners intending to take June 18th off must report to the government by Thursday. In sports news, the South Korean men's national football team will face off against China tonight in the second round of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. The match is set to kick off at 8 p.m. at the Sangam World Cup Stadium in Seoul. Now, this is one of the final 2 matches in Group C, which is made up of South Korea, China, Singapore, and Thailand. It's a crucial game for China as they need at least a draw to ensure they advance to the 3rd round of the World Cup qualifiers. China has only qualified for the World Cup finals once in 2002. And South Korea are already guaranteed to progress to the 3rd round as they are sure to finish at the top of their group, where the top 2 countries will advance to the next round. However, tonight's match holds significant importance for the Taeguk Warriors as well, because the outcome will determine who their opponents are in the 3rd round, right, Sang-yeon?
Right, so tonight's match will be important for both countries, the Korean national team and the Chinese national football team. So last Thursday, China made a draw with Thailand. So now China must at least make a draw or win against the Korean national football team if they want to advance to the 2026 World Cup finals. Now, as for the Taeguk Warriors, the advance to the final qualifier match was already confirmed. But if they draw or lose against the Chinese national team, then they will likely compete with Japan or Iran for the next match, which are known to be the strongest teams in the FIFA. This is because in the final qualifier match, the World Cup committee intentionally separates the strongest teams in the match group based on the FIFA ranking. Now, the purpose of this is to avoid the competent teams to go against each other. And currently, Japan and Iran ranks the highest among the Asian football team, followed by Korea and Australia, which are on the tie. So if we draw tonight, or worse, if we lose to China, the Korean football team will likely to be in the same match group with Japan or Iran, which will be quite disadvantageous for our team. So therefore, tonight's match will be a decisive moment for both teams.
Right, it will definitely be an important match for both countries, and not to mention that this is also the last match before the Korean men's national team, which has been under interim managers for the past few months, appoints its new manager. And Cheska, the Korean national team has been through quite a lot this year, right?
Yeah, as Sang-yeok mentioned, this match tonight will become very decisive in terms of who they will, fight with in the next round. However, as you mentioned, Eugene, the team has gone through a lot this year in terms of management changes and also the controversy over the scuffles within the team itself.
Right.
So I really do hope that they have pulled through and they show their best in the game and really leave nothing behind, because this is a great way to show their prowess because they have already qualified.
Right.
So they have nothing to lose, and I hope they really go for it and leave nothing behind in the game.
Right, so go Taeguk Warriors! Yay! And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. So now we're going to move on straight to our main discussion of the day. June here has so far been a month of diplomacy for Korea. We had the 2024 Korea-Africa Summit just last week, and this week President Yoon has taken his first overseas trip in more than 6 months, the first of this year. And in light of this, Newsroom prepared a two-part series on the president's destination, which is Central Asia. So to start us off, Cheska, could you tell us a bit more about President Yoon's visit to the region?
Absolutely. And before we start, I would like to point out that we're wearing the colors of the Central Asia to represent and celebrate his trip. So let's take a look at the screen to see the map and walk through the steps of President Yoon's visit. Now, during his trip from June 10th to 15th, he will visit 3 countries, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. Now, as Central Asia is a rapidly emerging hub in the global market, it is definitely attracting attention as a new export and investment destination for Korean companies. And as we have seen in the meeting that they had with the Turkmenistan, they are doing a lot of initiatives to push forth a lot of energy and constructions. So I do hope that his visit can further a closer and more collaborative relationship among the countries as well.
Right, there's definitely a lot of potential in it further advancing Korea's ties with Central Asia because, as you mentioned, the region is abundant with natural resources, natural gas, etc. Now, to learn more a bit about Central Asia, Sang-hyuk, for those who are unfamiliar with the region, could you provide more background information on Central Asia?
Sure. So if you look at the geography first, Central Asia is located west of China, south of Russia, all the way up to the border that faces Middle East. And as for the countries that go under the category of Central Asia, those include Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. So you can see here that countries that end with stan are the countries that go under the category.
Right.
So these countries were the once the Commonwealth of the Russian Empire, later known to be the Soviet Union.
Right.
Now, in ancient times, Central Asia was known as the Silk Road that connected the east and the west. And right now, large number of population currently lives in this vast land with abundant resources.
Right.
There are also unique cuisines that you can only find here in this region, such as lamb meat and pilaf.
And by the way, for those who are curious about what stan means, it means land in Persian. And you're watching NewsGen's first part about Central Asia. And to learn more about this region, and also as we are talking about millennials and Gen Zs, we're going to also take a look into what millennials and Gen Z in this region is like. And for that, we're going to invite a Kazakh Gen Z to our discussion. We'll be right back after this break. We're back, and today we're joined by Dennis Grev, a Kazakh Gen Z studying Korea. Welcome, Dennis, to the show.
Hello.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Great, it's lovely to have you. So first of all, Dennis, I think that you would have received this question a lot, but when did you first come to Korea and why?
So I first came to Korea all the way back in 2018 to do my bachelor's degree in KAIST. And I just stayed there ever since to do a master degree.
And you know, Dennis, our program really aims to represent and discuss traits of MZers. Would you share with us some of the interesting and unique traits of Kazakh MZers, the millennials and Gen Zs?
So yeah, sure. It is interesting that the history of Kazakhstan, and especially the 90s, really shaped the way the society works. And people lived through the really difficult economical times. So Gen Zers and millennials expect to earn a lot more money. And because of that, they're very career-oriented. And at the same time, compared to, let's say, Western peers, they have a lot more positive outlook on life. So they have more positive outlook on the society or on the government in general. And yeah, so this is the more unique part of it.
Okay, Dennis, so moving on to the next question, I want to ask about the dating and marriage culture in Kazakhstan. Are there any differences of dating and marriage culture apart from Korea?
Actually, they are kind of similar in a way that in Kazakhstan, still a huge percentage of dating and marriage is arranged, but through the family ties or through the friends, similar to the Korean tradition of sogating. And yeah, and essentially that's usually how people meet through their common peers or through the family ties. But also, since it's a more global society, dating apps or just in general meeting on the street is becoming more widespread.
Very interesting. And we have to talk about the K culture or the Korean wave. I mean, it is gaining popularity all over the world, but we're also curious, is it also popular in Kazakhstan? And if so, when do you think it actually started gaining popularity? And why do you think it has become so popular?
Oh, for sure, it's crazy popular, especially since the early 2010s. I think basically after Psy got very popular globally, it also came to high popularity in Kazakhstan. And after that, I think back in 2013, when BTS formed, they also got extremely popular. And on the side of the TV series, K-dramas were especially popular for Kazakhstani people because essentially they're soap operas and everybody loves them. And after 2000s, the wave of the rom-com movies kind of waned, and internet became more widespread. So people got basically hooked up on a new entertainment from Korea. So it was a perfect storm. So I still remember Goblin and Boys Over Flowers from these times.
Okay, as a Korean, I'm really glad to hear that. Now, as a final note, what changes or improvements would you like to see in the relationship between South Korea and Kazakhstan?
So, from what I remember, the Korean government established the Culture Center all the way back in 2000s, and I think it was the only one in the entirety of Central Asia, because we have a sizable Kazakhstani Korean population. What I would like to see more of is the ideally to increase the number of flights between Kazakhstan and Korea, because not only we have lots of tourists and students going both ways, but also medical tourism is getting high traction recently. And some of them stay for the entertainment in Korea as well. And on top of that, possibly from the standpoint of a student like me, the academic exchange could be a huge improvement between universities. So, for example, in Kazakhstan, it could be Nazarbayev University or national universities. In Korea, it could be all of the major universities.
Well, hope we can see such cooperation between the two countries in the near future. All right, Dennis, thank you so much for your amazing answers today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right, so expanding on Denise's answers, for example, how the K culture gained more popularity starting from 2010s through Psy and also BTS, which has become a global phenomenon, as we've all known. I've heard that it's not just Kazakhstan that the Korean wave is reaching in Central Asia.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've heard some really great feedback from Dennis about which dramas are popular.
Boys Over Flowers.
And then obviously, as we knew, the BTS and Psy and how it sort of took over. But it is no question that the K-pop and K-culture is actually spreading through Central Asia, especially when it comes to K-food. Because of Koryoin, the Central Asians that relocated from South Korea, I think Korean food is quite familiar to a lot of these people. So I've heard that kimchi is kind of like a staple food. But at the same time, the street food that we know of, the tteokbokki, the fried chicken, and the kimbap is actually now gaining more popularity popularity thanks to the K-culture and K-content. Because as you know, it is always shown in the dramas about
Right, they look delicious.
So I'm really surprised and also very excited that the K-culture and the K-wave is spreading not just through content, but through food. And also, Dennis mentioned even some of the medical trips that people are taking. So I think that is quite exciting. And additionally, the academic exchanges that could be happening
Really
between these two
important.
countries. Yeah.
Right. And especially talking about K-food, K-food is gaining immense popularity in the Central Asian region. I heard that there are like K-food classes provided by Korean cultural centers in Central Asian countries. So yeah, definitely Korean culture is booming in the Central Asian region. Hope we can see Central Asian culture booming in Korea here as well. Now, to talk more about K-culture and its reach in Central Asia, is there anything more that you'd like to add, Sang-yeong?
Yeah, so apart from the Korean wave and the K-wave, just like Dennis mentioned in the interview, there are many academic exchanges between the two countries. Right now, Uzbekistan shows the great interest among the Central Asian countries to Korea, and many Uzbeks want to learn Korean because they said that they want to understand the K-dramas and TV shows without subtitles, and also they want to get a job in the Korean employment market. In fact, the Korean job market is really popular for the overseas workers because the wage system is favorable to those workers from overseas. So as you can see here, the Central Asians are really showing a great interest to Korea.
Right. So K-culture and more Central Asians coming to Korea to either study or get jobs is one of the many ways that the region and Korea is cooperating or doing exchanges. And before we wrap up our discussion today, looking ahead, do you think that there will be more cooperation between Korea and Central Asia?
You know, I would personally definitely would love to see much more cooperation and exchanges between the two countries. As we saw in the news today, there are a lot of business exchanges that are happening right now in terms of the energy and the construction. And we know that Central Asia is a very resourceful country, and then South Korea has the technology and the market. So it would be a wonderful collaboration to work together. However, on the more MZ side, I think our interest or our sort of responsibility is to become a cultural bridge between a lot of these nations. And we kind of talked about this in the African Summit region when we discussed it. But I would love to see more flights that are happening.
Which is what Dennis mentioned in our live interview, right?
Exactly. And I was so happy that he mentioned it. So now I can use his voice to back up
your statement.
my personal initiative. And even President Yoon, I think, called it the K-Silk Road initiative.
Right.
And they are trying to increase at least the flight exchanges. But I do hope that more cultural exchanges can happen so that we can actually travel to all of these countries more freely and more affordable prices.
Right. And I think that you mentioned a really good point. We're already seeing like government cooperation exchanges becoming more active, as Cheska mentioned. For example, President Yoon's trip this time. But I think that like people-to-people exchanges is really important because that's what you meant, as you mentioned, that's what really bridges the two regions and which bridges the two cultures together, right?
And I think that's what initially or in the end makes the cultural collaboration and the business collaboration possible.
It makes every tie stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And Sang-yeong, is there anything that you'd like to add or talk about more between the two regions' relations?
Okay, so well, actually, I think the two regions are already close enough if you look at the history, because the two different countries are like the two different nations, but with same bloodline. So in the early 1930s, many Korean people living in the Soviet Union were forced to migrate to countries like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. And these people were called the Goryeo people, like Cheska mentioned earlier. Here, the Goryeo refers to the ancient dynasty in the Korean history. And it is estimated that there are about 300,000 people right now living in the Central Asian region, calling as the Goryeo people. So because of these Goryeo people, Central Asian countries tend to show high favorable mindsets towards Korean culture.
Right, and because we have these historic ties, I think that this will make the two regions' friendship or ties even stronger because we have a common ground. And we'll be talking more about the Koryoing people on our second part of our Central African series, which is Thursday. today. We'll leave it here today. Newsden, as you know, is here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Cheska Dainho.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Im Sang-yeon.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.